Studio lights go out as Jungkook breaks down crying. Jimin locks him in an embrace, as if the world doesn't deserve to see the wound blacklocked. "Don't touch him," Taehyung's voice echoed like a gunshot as the last studio light snapped off, plunging everything into a void of silence, except for the sound of Jungkook's sobs, raw, ragged, real. The air smelled of burnt wires and cold sweat. A haze of smoke clung to the ceiling as the emergency red lights flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. The room fell into darkness, so complete it felt like the universe itself had shut its eyes. Jungkook was on his knees, trembling, fists clenched against the polished studio floor that moments ago had held the rhythm of his flawless footwork. But now, that rhythm was gone. His breath hitched like static in a dying speaker, every exhale betraying a storm he could no longer suppress. Jimin didn't hesitate. Through the chaos, past the toppled mic stands and the acrid smell of something electrical having short-circuited, he moved swift, silent. He dropped to his knees beside Jungkook, arms wrapping around him like armor forged in anguish. "I've got you," he whispered, voice steady but thick. "I've got you, Kook, I swear." Jungkook's body convulsed in his arms, shaking like a leaf ripped from its branch by a violent wind. And then a sound escaped him, a scream muffled by Jimin's shoulder, so full of heartbreak it twisted the silence like a blade. Jimin tightened his hold, as if shielding a sacred wound, as if daring the world to look, as if saying, "You're not allowed to see this part of him, not anymore." Outside the glass wall of the studio, shadows moved. The control room had been emptied in under a minute. Producers, stylists, even security gone, no explanation, just vanishing. But Jimin had stayed. He always stayed. What had happened in the last 12 minutes before the blackout wasn't just technical failure. It was sabotage. Someone had known what the red light meant to Jungkook, that tiny red dot blinking on the camera, the one that signified, "You are being watched." And someone had known exactly when to turn it off, just as the truth started bleeding through the choreography. They weren't supposed to record that song. The one Jungkook had written in the locked hours between midnight and despair. The one he'd never shown anyone, not even Jimin. But it had leaked, accidentally, or so they'd been told, and now here he was, cracking open in the middle of a rehearsal that was never meant to be seen. Jimin could still feel the chill of Jungkook's skin against his. Cold, clammy, drenched in sweat like the fight-or-flight response had devoured him whole. And Jungkook didn't speak. Not at first. Only cried. Deep, ugly sobs that racked his frame with every broken inhale, as if something ancient had been dug up inside him, something he'd tried to bury with every perfect performance, every practiced smile. But Jimin had seen the cracks forming, the late-night messages that never got replies, the trembling hands he thought no one noticed, the slight wince every time someone mentioned the Japan incident in hushed tones. And now, all of it was erupting beneath the dark, like a fault line finally snapping. "I can't do this anymore," Jungkook gasped against him, barely audible. "I thought I could, I really thought." "You don't have to," Jimin cut in, firm but gentle. "You don't have to do it alone." The word alone hung there, heavy and stifling, because that was the real enemy here, not the camera, not the producers, not even the mystery of who leaked the track. It was the isolation that had wrapped itself around Jungkook like barbed wire, tight and silent. A door slammed open in the distance. Jimin's body tensed instantly, positioning himself between Jungkook and the darkness beyond. He could see nothing, but he heard it. Footsteps. Calm, deliberate, not security, not staff, something. Wrong. Instinct screamed at him. He pressed Jungkook's head tighter against his chest. "Don't look," Jimin murmured, low and urgent. Jungkook's sobs hiccuped into silence. He obeyed, trusted, and Jimin stared into the shadows as if he could fight off whatever was coming with sheer will. The steps stopped. A click echoed, a lighter maybe. Then a voice, distant and unfamiliar, spoke from the dark. "Your truth wasn't supposed to air tonight." Jimin froze. The voice was male. Calm, calculated, someone who knew. Before he could answer, a second voice, Taehyung's, cut through the black like a blade. "Back off," he snarled. "Now." Then came the whirring of cameras restarting. One by one, their blinking red lights flared back to life, like the eyes of mechanical beasts returning from slumber. And Jimin knew they were watching again, all of them, whoever they were. Jungkook stirred in his arms, his fingers curled into Jimin's shirt like anchors. "They're going to twist it," he whispered. "They'll twist everything." "No," Jimin said, cupping his jaw, forcing Jungkook to meet his eyes even in the gloom. "Not if we tell the story first." Because this was no longer just a rehearsal gone wrong. This was war. And every war needs a beginning. "Don't lie to me, Namjoon. Who gave them the file?" Jimin's voice was steel wrapped in fire, echoing off the bare concrete walls of the underground corridor beneath the studio. He had Jungkook's hand in his, still trembling but no longer silent. Jungkook's eyes were dull, like the light behind them had been switched off. Still breathing but not fully there. Namjoon didn't flinch, but the vein in his neck twitched. He knew something. "You think I'd do that to him?" Namjoon said evenly, locking eyes with Jimin. "After everything, after Tokyo." Jungkook winced at the word. The sharp inhale through his teeth broke the tension like a window cracking in winter. "Don't," he whispered. "Don't bring that up, please." But Jimin stepped forward, inches from Namjoon now. "It's already up, Taehyung. It's already back. That file wasn't just a demo. That was his confession, his therapy. You knew what was in it. And it was marked private, code red. Only 3 of us had access. Me, you, and..." "Yoongi," Namjoon finished quietly. Silence fell like ash. Jungkook looked up, eyes wide, betrayal blooming slow and heavy in his chest. No, he would. "Think Kook," Jimin said, softer now. "He hasn't answered your texts in 2 weeks. He bilayed on the comeback shoot. He's been different." "No," Jungkook snapped, pulling away from Jimin, eyes wild now. "Yoongi wouldn't sell me out, not him. Anyone else but not him." And then, as if summoned by his name, Yoongi appeared at the end of the corridor, backlit by red emergency lighting, face unreadable, a cigarette dangling from his lips, untouched. "I didn't sell you out," he said quietly, "but I didn't stop it either." Jungkook's legs nearly gave out. Jimin caught him by instinct, eyes burning with disbelief. "You let them take it. You let them air his breakdown like it was fan service." Yoongi exhaled smoke, eyes bloodshot but steady. "You don't know what they have on us, on me. If I didn't give them that file, they were going to leak Tokyo." "You promised," Jungkook croaked, voice breaking like glass underfoot. "You said that night would die with us." Yoongi flinched for the first time. "I had no choice." "There's always a choice," Jimin spat. "You just pick the one that hurt less for you." Yoongi's fists clenched. "Don't act like you're clean, Jimin. You think shielding him in that studio makes you a saint? You've been dancing around this for months, pretending not to see how close he was to the edge. You let him perform that song." "I begged him not to," Jimin shouted. "He wanted to sing it because he thought maybe, just maybe, someone out there would understand what it feels like to be devoured in the spotlight. But that was supposed to be his choice, not a goddamn viral campaign." A door banged open upstairs. Footsteps thundered down. Jungkook's breath hitched. "Get him out of here," Yoongi said lowly. "Now." Jimin didn't ask who. He knew. They were here. The suits, the handlers, the ones who always came when an idol cracked, with smiles too wide and contracts too long. Jimin turned to Jungkook, cupping his face. "Do you trust me?" Jungkook hesitated, just a second, but nodded. Jimin turned to Namjoon. "Distract them. Buy me 5 minutes." Namjoon didn't blink. "You owe me an explanation when this is over." "If we're still breathing by then," Jimin muttered. They moved fast, through a maintenance hatch, up a ladder, across a scaffold that reeked of rust and cold air. Every step was louder than it should have been, and Jungkook's knees kept buckling, but he didn't fall, not with Jimin holding on. They emerged into a dressing room, abandoned, dark. Jimin locked the door behind them and braced it with a folding chair. His chest was heaving. Jungkook collapsed onto the couch, hands in his hair. "He gave them Tokyo." "He gave them you," Jimin corrected, "and now we take it back." Jungkook looked up, dazed. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about going public." Jungkook's head snapped up. No, no way, that's career suicide. They already burned your name, Jimin said. Let's burn their lies. You don't get it, Jungkook said, laughing bitterly. They don't want the truth. They want the tragedy. They want the crying idol, the broken boy they can turn into clickbait. Jimin stepped closer. Then we don't give them tragedy, we give them rage, we give them reality. The Red Room files your real story, we stream it. Live, no edits, no filters, just you, talking. Jungkook stared. You want me to tear myself open on camera again? No, Jimin said. I want you to choose when and how it happens, not them. Jungkook shook his head, overwhelmed. It's too much. I don't even know who I am anymore. Jimin knelt in front of him, eyes searching his. You are the boy who survived Tokyo. The one who wrote songs at 3 a.m. because it was the only thing that kept you breathing. The one who believed that maybe art could still save someone. And maybe, just maybe, that someone is you. A pause. Then Jungkook whispered, what if I fail? Jimin took his hand, firm and sure. Then we fail together. The door handle rattled. Then came fists pounding, voices shouting his name, threats disguised as concern. But inside the room, it was quiet. Jungkook stood, eyes red, shoulders back. And for the first time in weeks, he looked like someone who remembered how to fight. Let's burn it down, he said. And Jimin smiled. Because the boy who once sang about a fake love was finally ready to tell the world the truth. Are you insane, Park Jimin? Seokjin's voice shattered the calm like a hammer through glass as the seven of them finally gathered in the soundproofed sanctuary of their old practice studio, once a temple of sweat and brotherhood, now echoing with fractured trust. His tone was razor-sharp, lined with disbelief and fear. Going live, with that file, with everything. Do you want to end his career or put a target on his back? He already has one, Jimin snapped, arms crossed, jaw locked. They're just pretending it's not there. Jungkook sat quietly near the mirror wall, staring at his own reflection. He didn't recognize the boys staring back. Hollow eyes, bitten lips, a hoodie pulled low over his face like armor. His fingers twitched against the couch. He hadn't touched his phone in 3 days. Every vibration felt like a landmine. Yoongi was standing in the farthest corner alone. Namjoon paced, chewing the inside of his cheek. Taehyung leaned against the window, one boot against the wall, smoking, even though he knew no one allowed it indoors anymore. The ashtray was already full. I think we're past damage control, Taehyung muttered, exhaling slowly. Might as well go nuclear. Don't joke, Namjoon snapped. This isn't another scandal we can buy silence for. This is Tokyo, this is him. Yoongi finally spoke. They threatened my family. You think I gave them that file because I didn't care? I had to choose. And you chose to feed Jungkook to the wolves, Jimin said coldly. No, Yoongi's voice cracked. I chose to survive. Silence pulsed. Jungkook stood, finally, dragging his fingers through his tangled hair. What happened in Tokyo, no one else should have ever known. Not unless I chose to tell them. I'm not ashamed of it, but I was ruined by it. And they knew it. What exactly happened in Tokyo? Seokjin asked carefully. We never got the full story, just whispers, panic, blood, headlines in languages we couldn't read. Jungkook looked at them all. Then laughed, low bitter. You want the whole story now? Yes, Jimin said, but not for us, for you. The room waited. So Jungkook spoke. I was meeting with a director, solo project, supposed to be intimate. Raw, we were shooting at this underground art studio. It was supposed to be off the record. Then halfway through the shoot, the room locked, doors sealed. No signal. 2 men came in, cameras still rolling. His voice started to shake. They said the footage would never be seen unless I signed a deal. A long-term contract. With their agency. Overseas, off-grid. I refused. They laughed, said I'd regret it. They tried to pin me down. Said the world would believe I was there for pleasure filming anyway. I fought them. I got out. He showed them the faint scar behind his ear. A nail, from the wall, ripped through my skin as I crawled through a basement duct. No one breathed. Taehyung dropped his cigarette. Namjoon, looked like someone had yanked the floor from beneath him. I came back with blood in my suitcase and told the label I'd been mugged. They told me to keep quiet. They paid someone, I don't know who. They threatened me if I ever talked. And now, Jimin whispered, they're using that threat again. Jungkook nodded. They used the Red Room file to bait me into silence. The song Abyss 3 AM was never meant to be heard. It had coded references to Tokyo. They leaked it just enough to scare me. Then they gave Yoongi a choice. Blackmail by proxy, Namjoon said, breathless. They knew he'd never survive it if he stayed silent. And now we all burn, Seokshin muttered. No, Jimin said, fierce. Now we fight. Yoongi stepped forward, shame curling off him like smoke. If we go live, if we show the real file, not the edited version, they'll retaliate. They're already retaliating, Jimin snapped. Don't you see? They didn't just leak the file. They leaked that old rehearsal footage too, the one where Jungkook froze mid-step. Do you know what the hashtags were this morning? He tossed his phone onto the table. The screen read. Jungkook breakdown. Fallen idol. Mental collapse or marketing stunt. Jungkook's throat closed. They're calling me unstable, he whispered. Then show them what unstable looks like, Taehyung growled. Take the power back. Seokshin ran a hand through his hair, packing. And the label. You think they'll just sit back and let us dismantle the illusion? They've already started damage control, Yoongi said, voice hoarse. They're scheduling surprise interviews, setting up fake charity appearances for Jungkook. I saw the itinerary. So they'll bury it, Namjoon said, with smiles and PR. Unless we speak first, Jimin said. Jungkook stood again, straighter this time. He reached for the hard drive Jimin had pulled from the server room, the one with the real Red Room files. Unedited, unfiltered. The studio footage, the confessional, the full version of Abyss 3 AM, recorded in a single take, voice cracking, eyes bleeding with exhaustion. Okay, he said. We stream it, but not through their servers. I know a darknet streamer, Yoongi muttered. Art activist, used to run illegal music protests in Seoul. He owes me. Get him, Jungkook said. Jimin walked up beside him, shoulder to shoulder. You ready to become the villain in their story? I was never their hero, Jungkook replied. Just a product, and I'm done being sold. Namjoon gave a dry, anxious laugh. This might kill our careers. Jimin looked around the room. You all with us? One by one, they nodded. Yoongi last. And so the plan began. Midnight, a private link, global countdown, no warning, just truth like a bullet fired live across the world. But as they filed out of the practice room, hearts pounding, steps heavy, none of them noticed the figure watching from the fire escape, camera in hand, a smile playing on her lips. She pressed send. The message went to an anonymous thread on an encrypted server. Subject, the idols are about to ruin everything. I have footage. I want payback. And across the city, in a boardroom lit by white light and darker intentions, someone whispered, let them try. The screen flickered. 12:00 AM KST. A black loading bar etched itself across millions of phone screens, desktops, and pirated web streams as a single title appeared in stark white font against a void black background. The Red Room files, unedited. It was happening. Live, raw, no labels, no censors. Jungkook sat alone in the frame, the camera steady, unflinching, unafraid. His hair was unstyled, lips chapped, eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. No makeup, no filter, just him. The room around him was silent, lit only by a single overhead bulb swaying slightly as if the truth itself made the air shiver. He inhaled slowly. And began. My name is Jeon Jungkook. You think you know me. You don't. Outside the streaming room, the others stood in silence. Eyes glued to the monitors as tens of thousands, then millions poured into the feed. The comments scrolled too fast to read. Some were fans, some were press. Some were hate-filled bots deployed by the label in a last-ditch effort to flood the channel. None of it mattered. Jungkook was finally speaking. They told me to smile, so I did, even when my ribs were cracked from rehearsal accidents, even when I buried the last friend I trusted with my real thoughts, even when I came back from Tokyo with blood in my shoes and nobody asked me what happened. He looked straight into the lens, unblinking. You call it breakdown, I call it betrayal. Meanwhile, chaos brewed in the city above. The label had caught wind of the stream 6 minutes after it launched. 5 legal teams were already drafted into a war room, barking into Bluetooth earpieces and smashing out cease and desist letters as if they could rewrite reality with font size and threats. He's nomming names, one assistant gasped, staring at the live transcript, pale as death. He's talking about Fujiwara Corporation. He's nomming sponsors. Pull the server, screamed a man in a 3-piece suit. Who the hell gave them access? Back in the studio, Jimin's fingers flew across a second laptop, routing the stream through a chain of VPNs Yoongi had embedded days ago. Every time the label shut down one server, another mirror popped up in Belarus, Estonia, Iceland, Hong Kong. It was like fighting a ghost. This is war, Namjoon whispered. Jungkook's voice cut through once more, low and pained. You don't know what it's like to be 22 and told your body doesn't belong to you. That every scar, every twitch of your expression, every tear was property. Content. I stopped being a human and became an algorithm. Smiles per second, heartbeats per reaction. He leaned closer to the mic. I wrote a song called Abyss 3am, because that's the time I always thought about ending it. The room behind the stream went cold. Taehyung turned away, wiping his face roughly. Jimin pressed his fingers into his chest, like trying to hold his own heart still. Even Yoongi, who rarely flinched, looked haunted. I never wanted to die, Jungkook continued. But I wanted it to stop. The noise, the fake laughter, the echo of my own voice on replay while the real me was dying in silence. He held up a flash drive, the same one Jimin had stolen. This drive contains every contract they made us sign with NDAs about health, therapy bans, creative control. It contains receipts, dates, flight logs. I kept it, even when I wanted to forget. And now I'm giving it to you, all of you. Do what you want with it, just don't let them rewrite me. Then he paused, looked down, breathed. I'm not asking for pity, I'm asking for truth, and I'm not alone. As if on cue, the screen split. Suddenly, Taehyung appeared on the right, then Namjoon, then Jimin, then Yoongi, then Jin. One by one, all live, all streaming from separate locations, each with different pieces, different confessions, different truths. Jin showed documents, financial abuse, image control clauses, forced diets. Namjoon pulled up chat logs, executives mocking fans, manipulating mental health narratives for comeback sympathy buzz. Taehyung uploaded audio, threats from talent managers, promises of exile, manipulated clips planted in tabloids. And Jimin showed the footage. From the Tokyo hotel. Blurry, shaky, but clear enough. Jungkook's scream, the slam of a locked door, the flash of a man's face, the director who later won an award for artistic cinematography on a project eerily similar. And that's when the world stopped pretending. The comments exploded. I believed in you, Jungkook. I'm sorry. I work for an entertainment law firm. I want to help. I was assaulted by the same director in Osaka in 2020. This isn't just idols. This is a system. In a hidden room beneath the city, a phone rang. The CEO answered it with trembling fingers. They broke containment, the voice on the other end hissed. You need to prepare for a total collapse. And then the impossible happened. The network stream was hijacked, but not by the label. By the people. Mirror links multiplied across social media. Fans started translating captions into every language within minutes. Journalists began dissecting every contract clause on live panels. Anonymous hackers dumped unreleased footage from blacklisted trainees. Survivors from other labels came forward. It became a reckoning. And in the center of it all, Jungkook sat quietly, tears on his face, a faint smile breaking through. Not because he was healed, but because, for the first time, the silence wasn't swallowing him. Someone knocked on the door. Jimin opened it and froze. Standing there was a girl. 17, shaking, dressed in an old Jungkook hoodie. "I saw everything," she whispered. "And I have something to give you, something from Tokyo. I was there." Behind her, another girl stepped forward. Then another. And another. Survivors. Witnesses. A wave. Jungkook stood slowly. As they entered the room, one by one, he realized the most terrifying and beautiful thing of all. This story was no longer just his. And that meant it might finally change the world. "You should have stayed silent." The voice was cold, deliberate, and close. Too close. Jungkook froze mid-step as the elevator door shut behind him, trapping him in a space too small to contain the weight of what he'd just done. He turned slowly, heart hammering, and came face to face with director Han Seong-jin, one of the highest-ranking board members of the label. Polished, immaculate, but the eyes were no longer smiling. They were dead. "You don't get to just walk away from this," Han continued, straightening his tie with the calm of a man who had buried careers with a single phone call. "Do you think you've won something? Some moral victory? You've declared war on a billion-dollar machine." Jungkook held his ground, then let it burn. Han's lip curled. "You're emotional, predictable. You always were, even back when we tested your market value during training. You cried when we replaced your duet partner. Remember that? Her contract disappeared overnight." "Because you ruined her life," Jungkook snapped. "She was 17. "She was a risk," Han said icily, "and so are you." Suddenly, the elevator jolted. Emergency stop. Jungkook right quote as pulse spiked. "What are you doing?" he whispered. Han reached into his coat pocket, not for a weapon but worse, a flash drive. He held it between two fingers, like a lit match. "This is your full psychiatric evaluation from 2019, he said softly. "You were diagnosed with acute post-traumatic stress, depressive tendencies, and disassociation. It's sealed under medical privacy unless you become a national security issue, like, say, inciting public panic with false allegations." Jungkook stared at the drive. "You're bluffing." Han smiled. "Am I?" The air turned icy. Jungkook swallowed hard, rage and terror surging in equal measure. "You kept files on us." "We kept control," Han corrected. "That was the contract, Jeon Jungkook. You gave us the rights to your voice, your image, your silence. You signed it in blood, metaphorically and otherwise. You want out now, that's fine. But you'll go down as unstable, dangerous, a cautionary tale." Jungkook took a breath and laughed. Soft, hollow, but real. "You really don't get it," he whispered. "It's already too late for your threats. The world saw me bleed, and they didn't turn away." Han's eyes darkened. "They saw what we let them see. The rest can still be buried." The elevator jolted again, rising. Lights flickered back to life. Jungkook stepped forward, close enough to see the tension in Han's jaw. "I hope you sleep well tonight," Jungkook said, "because it might be the last night your empire doesn't wake up to fire." The doors opened. Jungkook stepped out without looking back. But Han's voice followed. "Make no mistake, if you bring us down, you bring everyone down, including your band." Jungkook paused and didn't answer. Back at the apartment, the room was full. Jimin, Namjoon, Jin, Yoongi, and Taehyung stood around the girl who had appeared the night before Yoona. She sat quietly, hands wrapped around a chipped mug of tea, staring down at a tiny, worn-out camcorder on the table. "This was my sister," she said finally. "She was training under Fujiwara. She recorded everything, even the day she disappeared." "Disappeared," Taehyung repeated, frowning. "She tried to expose them in 2018, Yoona whispered. "Posted anonymous messages, but they found out, said she overdosed. I never believed it. This," she gestured to the camcorder, "was hidden in her violin case. I only found it last month." Yoongi reached forward and hit play. The room turned to stone. The video was grainy but damning. A hidden camera in a hotel suite, blurred faces. One unmistakable, Director Fujiwara, pressuring a young girl in a school uniform to remove her jacket, her voice breaking as she tried to explain she was just there for the music video shoot. "No one ever told me this was part of it," she whispered. "Then consider it a bonus," Fujiwara chuckled. The video cut out abruptly. Yuna trembled. "My sister died 3 days later." Jin covered his mouth. Namjoon turned away. Jimin slammed his fist into the table so hard the camcorder shook. "We're releasing this," Yoongi said, voice like steel. "No," Jungkook said, stepping into the room. "Not yet." Everyone turned. His face was pale, but his eyes were burning. "If we release it now, they'll discredit her, say it's edited, fake, we need context, proof, names, and then we drop everything all at once, not a scandal, a revolution." Namjoon looked at him, then nodded slowly. "You want to pull the whole system down?" "I want justice," Jungkook said. "For her, for me, for everyone they erased." Jimin walked toward him. "What did Han say?" Jungkook held up a phone. "I recorded everything." Jimin blinked. "You?" "He threatened to leak my medical records," Jungkook said. "Said I was unstable, suicidal, said they'd spin the story, label me a danger. Even now, they think fear works." "Does it?" Jimin asked gently. Jungkook looked at the camcorder and whispered, "Not anymore." That night, a second stream was announced, 2 days from now. They called it The Reckoning. The countdown went global in hours. Hashtags surged. But in the depths of the city, the label began to move. Private investigators were hired. Threatening messages flooded former trainees' inboxes. Files were erased. Accounts deleted. One ex-staff member was found in her apartment, intact but unconscious. The warning was clear. The machine was panicking. And panic makes monsters sloppy. Meanwhile, a message appeared in Jungkook S inbox. "Unknown sender, you don't know me, but I was there in Tokyo. I saw everything. Meet me. No cameras, no phones, tomorrow, 3 am. Abandoned Studio 4B, come alone." He stared at it, and without hesitation, typed one word. "Okay." The air around Studio 4B tasted like rust, decay, and forgotten dreams. The building had been condemned years ago, its windows cracked like spiderwebs, the walls etched with faded graffiti, some from fans, some from former trainees who had passed through its doors like ghosts in a machine that never loved them back. At 2:58 a.m., Jungkook stood outside the iron door, his hoodie drawn up, face hidden beneath the shadow of night. His hands trembled in his pockets, not from fear, but from knowing this meeting could shatter whatever resolve he had left. A single bulb above the entrance flickered. He pushed the door open. Inside, the studio was cold and quiet, dust particles dancing through moonlight that broke in from shattered skylights above. Old mirrors lined the wall, warped and tarnished, reflecting nothing clearly. A broken speaker lay on its side in the corner. And then, "You came." The voice came from the shadows, feminine, familiar. Jungkook turned sharply. From behind the pillar stepped a woman in a long coat, face partially obscured by a black cap. She removed it slowly. His heart stilled. "Min-seo." She nodded once. Her eyes were sunken but sharp, mouth set in a hard line. "You're supposed to be dead," Jungkook whispered. "So are you," she replied, stepping closer. "After Tokyo, I watched the footage. I was sure they'd bury you like the others, but you came back, and then you talked, and now the ones in the dark are starting to move again." Jungkook swallowed. "You saw what happened." "I filmed it." He blinked. "What?" She reached into her coat and pulled out a second camcorder, old, dented, but intact. "I was in the storage crawlspace. I'd been living in the back rooms of the studio for days, hiding from Fujiwara's men. I saw them drag you into that suite. I saw you fight. I saw you crawl out. I saw everything." "Why didn't you come forward?" Because I wasn't stupid, she snapped. I already tried once. I gave proof to a reporter. He was found 2 days later with a heroin overdose. He didn't even drink. Jungkook was silent. I stayed quiet until now. He stared at the camcorder in her hands like it was a live wire. What's on that tape could end everything. No, she said. What's on this tape could start something real, a purge, an unraveling, but only if you're ready to carry it. He hesitated. What do you want in return? She smirked. I want to see them fall, all of them. He stepped forward. Let me have it, please. But she didn't move. There's one more thing you should know, she said. You're not just being hunted by the label anymore. Someone inside your circle is feeding them. Jungkook froze. Her voice dropped lower. They call him the Echo. He's been leaking your every move for weeks. That's how they found out about the Tokyo file. That's how they knew the time and place of every stream you planned. He's close to you. No, Jungkook whispered. That's not possible. She stepped forward, eyes locked on his. You want the tape, you take it. But know this, until you find the Echo, you're dancing in a minefield. She pressed the camcorder into his hands and turned to leave. And just before disappearing into the night, she said one final thing. You think your fans are just watching. Some of them are waiting for you to fall. Because that's what the industry taught them to love, destruction, not salvation. When she was gone, Jungkook stood alone in the studio, breathing hard. He opened the camcorder. It worked. The screen flickered, revealing a timestamp from 2 years ago. Footsteps, a hallway, the blurred figure of Fujiwara, the sound of muffled struggling, his own voice screaming. He dropped to his knees. It was real. It had all been real. And someone had watched. Someone had kept it. Someone had waited for the right moment to strike back. Back at the apartment, chaos erupted. Yoongi was packing. Jimin's voice had gone hoarse from shouting. Jin held a phone in his hand, white-knuckled, reading the message they'd all received at the same time. From private sender. Subject, the traitor. Content, the one closest to him bleeds red through his smile. Watch the rooftop. You'll see what you missed. What the hell does that mean? Taehyung asked, teeth clenched. Yoongi said nothing, but bolted toward the stairwell, 2 steps at a time. Jimin followed. When they reached the rooftop, wind howling across the edge, they saw nothing. No one. Until a shape emerged from the far side. Namjoon. Standing at the edge. Hands in his coat pockets. Staring down at the city. Taehyung, Jimin called out. Namjoon didn't turn around. You ever wonder, he said quietly, what it costs to keep a dream alive? Yoongi stepped forward. Don't do this. Namjoon finally turned. And there it was. The guilt, the weight, the truth. I've been leaking your locations, he said flatly, but not to hurt you, to protect you. What? Jimin choked out. They threatened my brother, Namjoon whispered. He's overseas, studying. They said if I didn't help them, they'd make it look like a suicide, like they made it look for Hyunsoo, and Mina, and the others. You should have told us, Yoongi said, his voice cracking. And put all of you at risk? No, Namjoon shook his head. I thought I could control it, filter what they saw, but they wanted more. They always want more. You're not alone anymore, Jimin said. You don't have to carry this. But Namjoon smiled, a broken, tired smile. We already lost so much, and now the only way forward is through the fire. Then he pulled something from his pocket, a second flash drive. Everything they ever gave me, every name, every payment, every threat, it's all here. He tossed it to Yoongi. Then whispered, make it count, and stepped away from the edge. Jimin caught him before he fell. As dawn broke, painting the sky in cruel shades of orange and gray, the group stood together again. More wounded, more awake, and more dangerous than ever. The truth was a sword now, and they were ready to wield it. The final stream was scheduled for 10:00 p.m. KST. There were no countdowns, no teaser trailers, no glossy thumbnails, just a black screen with 4 words: "Let them come clean." By 9:57, the server traffic had doubled. At 10:01, it crashed twice. At 10:03, it returned stronger. And at 10:05, Jungkook appeared. This time, not in a dark room, not trembling or hidden. He stood on a rooftop, bathed in Seoul's electric glow. Behind him, the skyline pulsed like a heartbeat, alive and watching. He wore black. No stylist, no production crew, just him, the camera, and the truth. He didn't greet the audience. He didn't have to. Instead, he stepped aside. Yoongi appeared. Holding the camcorder from Studio 4B, he placed it gently on a table and hit play. The video started with static, then unfurled in brutal clarity. The footage Min Seo had saved, untouched. Jungkook, dragged, beaten, escaping. It played without commentary, without edits, without music. Just silence. The world watched in horror. Then Namjoon's files came next. Contracts signed under duress, medical records redacted without consent, chat logs from executives discussing how to provoke fan wars to control trending tags. Each revelation landed like a hammer to the industry's polished mask. Jin showed the budget breakdown. Millions laundered through fake training programs, hush money masked as mental health stipends. Taehyung read out loud the list of victims, some gone, some missing, some still fighting legal battles in silence. His voice cracked on the name of Hyunsoo, a backup dancer who once confided in him after rehearsals and disappeared a month later. And Jimin stood beside Jungkook the entire time. Not speaking. Just there. A silent rebellion of presence. Then finally, it was Jungkook's turn again. He looked into the lens. And this time, he didn't cry. "I'm not here to ask for your forgiveness or your pity. I'm not even asking for your belief. I'm here to tell you that this system, this machine we've been caught in, is not untouchable." He held up the camcorder, then placed it gently on the ground. This is what they were afraid of, not just this footage, but us, telling the story ourselves, without edits, without handlers, without apology. His voice was steady. "When I was 17, I signed a contract I didn't understand. When I was 22, I thought dying would be easier than talking. Now I'm 27, and I finally understand something. Truth is not a weapon you throw. It's a wound you show, so others know they're not alone." The screen faded to black. No music. No credits. Just silence. But the world did not stay silent. Within hours, hashtags exploded. "Let them come clean." The Red Room files. Jungkook was never alone. This is not just K-pop. Lawsuits were filed before the sunrise. Whistleblowers began emerging from other labels. An emergency summit of entertainment heads was called. Fujiwara's studio shuttered overnight. An arrest warrant followed 3 days later. And on day 5, Han Seongjin was found missing. A note left on his desk read, "Tell them I never lost control. They simply stopped obeying." But this wasn't the end. The industry didn't crumble overnight. The machine still sputtered, still tried to evolve. But something had changed permanently. There were eyes now, people watching, people listening. And Jungkook. He didn't return to stage. He didn't release a single. He disappeared from social media. But every so often, someone would post a photo, a blurry figure at a coastal town in Norway, sketching in a notebook, a smile in a bookstore in Prague, a hand reaching out to help a child climb a stone step in Kyoto. And the caption always read the same. "He looks lighter." Jimin opened a dance school in Busan. Yoongi began producing anonymously for indie artists who couldn't afford studios. Taehyung painted again. Jin published a memoir under a pseudonym. Namjoon spoke at international panels about ethics in entertainment and the price of silence. They didn't stay idols. They became something else. Human. And that, in the end, was the greatest rebellion. Because they lived. They chose to live. even when the world tried to write them out of their own story. And the final line, written in red ink on the last frame of the last broadcast, read, "The wound is no longer hidden. That means it can finally heal.